Question 1. Upon reviewing the application of a prospective student for the upcoming academic year, the admissions committee notes that while the applicant's overall profile is promising, there are significant discrepancies in their submitted academic transcripts from a previous institution. The Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, who knows the applicant's family, has informally expressed a strong desire for the applicant to be admitted, suggesting that the applicant has potential despite the transcript issues. The committee is aware that the university's admission regulations require all submitted academic records to be verified for authenticity and accuracy. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to ensure adherence to the regulatory framework and ethical standards of Alzaiem Alazhari University? Option A. Reject the applicant immediately due to the discrepancies in the transcripts, without further investigation or consultation. Option B. Proceed with admitting the student based on the dean's recommendation, assuming the transcript issues are minor and the applicant's potential outweighs them. Option C. Initiate a formal process to verify the authenticity and accuracy of the applicant's submitted academic transcripts and defer a final admission decision until satisfactory verification is obtained, while also informing the dean of the process. Option D. Admit the student but place them on academic probation from the outset, acknowledging the transcript concerns. The correct answer is B. Proceed with admitting the student based on the dean's recommendation, assuming the transcript issues are minor and the applicant's potential outweighs them. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a university's academic integrity standards and the pressure to admit a student with potential but questionable academic credentials. The admissions committee must balance the university's commitment to academic excellence with its broader mission of providing educational opportunities. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any decision upholds the university's reputation and adheres to its established admission policies, which are implicitly governed by the regulatory framework of Alzaiem Alazhari University. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of the applicant's profile against the established admission criteria, with a particular focus on the integrity of the submitted academic records. This aligns with the university's regulatory framework, which mandates fair and consistent application of admission standards to all applicants. The ethical imperative is to ensure transparency and prevent any undue influence or favoritism treatment that could compromise the integrity of the admission process. This approach prioritizes merit and adherence to established procedures, safeguarding the university's academic standing. An incorrect approach would be to bypass the standard review process based on the dean's personal recommendation. This fails to uphold the university's regulatory framework by circumventing established admission protocols and potentially introducing bias. Ethically, it compromises fairness and equal opportunity for other applicants. Another incorrect approach is to admit the student without further verification of their academic records, despite the suspicion of falsification. This directly violates the principle of academic integrity, a cornerstone of any university's regulatory and ethical obligations. It risks admitting a student who may not be academically prepared, potentially leading to future academic difficulties and undermining the value of the degrees awarded by Alzaiem Alazhari University. A third incorrect approach is to reject the applicant solely based on the dean's suspicion without a formal investigation. This could be seen as an arbitrary decision, lacking due process and potentially unfair if the suspicion is unfounded. The university's framework typically requires a process for addressing concerns about academic credentials. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to institutional policies and ethical principles. This involves 1. Understanding and strictly applying the university's admission regulations. 2. Maintaining objectivity and impartiality in evaluating all applications. 3. Investigating any credible concerns regarding the authenticity of submitted documents through established procedures. 4. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them. 5. Seeking guidance from relevant university authorities or committees when faced with complex or ethically ambiguous situations. Question 2. Market research demonstrates that a significant number of prospective students for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam feel unprepared for certain analytical reasoning sections. To address this perceived gap and improve applicant engagement, the admissions department is considering two market research strategies. 1. developing a survey to gauge applicant familiarity with specific analytical reasoning concepts. And 2, offering a series of free online webinars that provide general guidance on critical thinking skills relevant to university-level study, without referencing specific exam content, which approach best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam. Option A, offering a series of free online webinars that provide general guidance on critical thinking skills relevant to university-level study. Option B, developing targeted marketing materials that highlight common errors made by applicants in previous analytical reasoning sections. Option C, conducting a survey that asks prospective students to rate the difficulty of specific question types from past exams. Option D, developing a survey to gauge applicant familiarity with specific analytical reasoning concepts. The correct answer is D, developing a survey to gauge applicant familiarity with specific analytical reasoning concepts. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's need for accurate admissions data with the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the entrance examination process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create an environment where shortcuts are tempting, but adherence to regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines is paramount. Careful judgment is required to identify and mitigate potential biases or unfair advantages that could arise from the proposed market research activities. The correct approach involves conducting market research that is strictly aligned with the Alzaiem Alazhari University's established entrance examination regulations and ethical guidelines. This means any research must focus on understanding general applicant profiles, educational trends, and potential areas for improvement in the examination's accessibility or clarity, without directly influencing or compromising the fairness of the exam itself. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams, as stipulated by Alzaiem Alazhari University, emphasizes impartiality, transparency, and the prevention of any form of academic misconduct or unfair advantage. Therefore, research that seeks to understand applicant demographics or educational backgrounds for strategic planning, provided it does not involve pre-exam information dissemination or direct coaching related to exam content, is compliant. This approach upholds the principle of equal opportunity for all candidates. An incorrect approach that involves surveying prospective students about specific question types or topics that are likely to appear on the exam is ethically unacceptable and violates the core principles of fair examination. This would constitute a direct breach of the university's regulations against providing advance information about exam content, thereby creating an unfair advantage for those surveyed. Another incorrect approach, such as offering preparatory materials that are directly derived from the market research on potential exam questions, also constitutes academic misconduct. This directly undermines the validity of the entrance examination by preempting the assessment of genuine knowledge and skills. A third incorrect approach, which involves analyzing past exam performance data to identify weaknesses in specific student groups and then tailoring marketing efforts to exploit these perceived weaknesses, is ethically dubious and potentially discriminatory. While understanding applicant pools is important, using such analysis to create targeted, potentially advantageous, preparatory content for specific groups before the exam is unfair and violates the spirit of merit-based admissions. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to the Alzaiem Alazhari University-specific entrance examination regulations and ethical codes. This involves a thorough review of all proposed research activities against these guidelines. If any activity raises concerns about fairness, impartiality, or the potential for academic misconduct, it should be revised or rejected. Professionals should seek clarification from the relevant university authorities or ethics committees when in doubt. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all admissions processes, including market research, support the university's commitment to academic integrity and equitable opportunity for all applicants. Question 3. Strategic planning requires a thorough evaluation of proposed changes to the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance examination process. Which of the following approaches best ensures that such changes align with the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair admissions? Option A. Implementing changes to the exam format or content based on informal feedback from invigilators during the examination period to ensure a perceived easier experience for candidates. Option B. Prioritizing immediate enrollment figures by adjusting exam difficulty or scoring thresholds to meet institutional targets, regardless of the impact on assessment validity. Option C. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes potential consequences on academic standards, fairness, and stakeholder perceptions, and involves consultation with academic bodies. Option D. Focusing solely on the cost-effectiveness of the examination administration, making changes that reduce operational expenses without considering their effect on the fairness or rigor of the assessment. The correct answer is C. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes potential consequences on academic standards, fairness, and stakeholder perceptions, and involves consultation with academic bodies. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical and regulatory obligations of ensuring a fair and transparent entrance examination process. The pressure to admit a certain number of students or to meet specific enrollment targets can create a temptation to overlook or manipulate assessment criteria, which directly conflicts with the integrity of the examination. Careful judgment is required to uphold academic standards while also considering the university's operational needs. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates the potential consequences of proposed changes to the entrance exam on various stakeholders, including students, faculty, and the university's reputation. This assessment must be grounded in the principles of fairness, equity, and academic rigor, as mandated by the Alzaiem university's internal regulations and any overarching national educational guidelines that govern university admissions. The process should involve consultation with relevant academic departments and admissions committees to ensure that any proposed changes align with educational objectives and do not compromise the validity or reliability of the assessment. This proactive evaluation allows for the identification and mitigation of risks before implementation, thereby safeguarding the integrity of the admissions process. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate enrollment targets over rigorous assessment criteria would fail to uphold the university's commitment to academic excellence and fairness. This would likely violate internal university policies that stipulate the criteria for admission and the conduct of examinations, as well as potentially contravene national educational standards that emphasize merit-based selection. Another incorrect approach that involves making ad hoc adjustments to the exam content or scoring based on perceived student performance during the exam itself, without a predefined and transparent methodology, constitutes a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Such actions undermine the standardization and objectivity of the examination, creating an unfair advantage for some candidates and disadvantaging others. This directly contravenes the principles of equal opportunity and fair assessment, which are fundamental to any reputable educational institution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the objective of the proposed change. Second, identify all potential impacts, both positive and negative, on students, faculty, and the institution. Third, consult relevant university policies, academic regulations, and any applicable national educational laws. Fourth, conduct a thorough risk assessment, considering the likelihood and severity of negative consequences. Fifth, develop mitigation strategies for identified risks. Finally, document the entire process and the rationale for the decision, ensuring transparency and accountability. Question 4. Examination of the data shows a significant discrepancy in the reported success rates for different applicant demographics in the recent Alzaiem University entrance exam. To understand the potential impact of these disparities on future enrollment strategies, what is the most appropriate initial step to take? Option A. Focus the impact assessment solely on the highest performing demographic groups to identify best practices for recruitment. Option B. Immediately initiate a review of the data collection and validation processes to identify any systemic errors or biases that may have contributed to the observed discrepancies. Option C. Proceed with the impact assessment using the existing data to inform enrollment strategies, assuming the discrepancies reflect genuine underlying trends. Option D. Share the raw, unverified data with the admissions committee to allow them to draw their own conclusions about the demographic disparities. The correct answer is B. Immediately initiate a review of the data collection and validation processes to identify any systemic errors or biases that may have contributed to the observed discrepancies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for enrollment data and the ethical obligation to ensure data privacy and accuracy. The entrance exam regulations for Alzaiem University likely emphasize responsible data handling and the protection of applicant information. Therefore, any approach that compromises these principles, even for the sake of expediency, would be professionally unacceptable. The correct approach involves a thorough and systematic review of the data collection and processing procedures. This aligns with the university's regulatory framework, which would mandate adherence to data protection principles and the verification of data integrity before its use for any official purpose, including impact assessment. This approach ensures that any conclusions drawn from the data are reliable and that the privacy of applicants is respected, thereby upholding ethical standards and regulatory compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the speed of data retrieval without verification would fail to meet the regulatory requirements for data accuracy and integrity. This could lead to flawed impact assessments based on erroneous information, potentially causing misallocation of resources or incorrect policy decisions. Another incorrect approach that involves sharing raw, unverified data with external parties would violate data privacy regulations and could expose the university to legal repercussions and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or incomplete datasets would undermine the scientific rigor expected in an impact assessment, leading to unreliable findings and a failure to meet the university's standards for evidence-based decision-making. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical considerations. This involves understanding the specific requirements of the Alzaiem University entrance exam regulations regarding data handling, privacy, and reporting. Before proceeding with any analysis, professionals must ensure that the data is accurate, complete, and has been collected and processed in accordance with these regulations. If any discrepancies or potential violations are identified, they should be addressed immediately through established protocols, which may involve data cleansing, re-verification, or consultation with relevant university authorities. Question 5. Assessment of the proposed revisions to the Alzaiem University entrance examination, which aim to increase the university's overall enrollment figures by incorporating a broader range of assessment criteria beyond traditional academic performance, requires a thorough evaluation of potential consequences. Which of the following approaches best ensures that these revisions align with the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair admissions? Option A. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes the effects of the proposed revisions on academic standards, fairness, equity, and the overall validity of the entrance examination, ensuring alignment with the university's regulatory framework for admissions. Option B. Introducing subjective qualitative assessments into the admissions process without establishing clear, objective scoring rubrics or oversight mechanisms to allow for a more holistic evaluation of candidates. Option C. Prioritizing the implementation of revisions that are projected to yield the most significant increase in student applications and acceptances, as this directly addresses the university's enrollment growth objectives. Option D. Focusing the assessment primarily on the financial benefits and cost-effectiveness of the revised admissions process, as this is a key performance indicator for university administration. The correct answer is A. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes the effects of the proposed revisions on academic standards, fairness, equity, and the overall validity of the entrance examination, ensuring alignment with the university's regulatory framework for admissions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes for the university. The admissions committee must navigate the ethical imperative of fair and objective evaluation against the institutional desire to attract high-achieving students. A rigorous impact assessment is crucial to ensure that any proposed changes to the admissions process are not only effective, but also ethically sound and compliant with Alzaiem University's established regulatory framework for entrance examinations. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates the potential consequences of proposed changes on various stakeholders, including prospective students, current students, faculty, and the university's reputation. This assessment must consider fairness, equity, transparency, and the alignment with the university's mission and academic standards. Specifically, it requires identifying potential biases, unintended negative consequences, and ensuring that any modifications do not compromise the integrity or validity of the entrance examination as a measure of academic readiness. This aligns with the university's commitment to upholding high standards in its admissions processes, as implicitly mandated by its regulatory framework for entrance exams, which prioritizes merit and equal opportunity. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or perceived immediate benefits without a thorough, data-driven impact assessment. For instance, prioritizing changes that might superficially increase enrollment numbers without considering their long-term effect on academic quality or student success would be ethically questionable and potentially violate the spirit of the university's admissions regulations. Another flawed approach would be to focus only on the financial implications of admissions, neglecting the educational and ethical dimensions. This would disregard the fundamental purpose of the entrance examination, which is to assess academic potential and suitability for higher education, thereby failing to uphold the university's commitment to academic excellence and fair selection. A third incorrect approach would be to adopt changes that introduce subjective criteria without clear guidelines or oversight, potentially leading to bias and undermining the transparency expected in university admissions, which is a cornerstone of ethical academic practice. Professionals tasked with evaluating changes to university entrance exams should adopt a structured decision-making process. This involves clearly defining the objectives of any proposed change, identifying all potential impacts, positive and negative, gathering relevant data and evidence, consulting with stakeholders, and documenting the assessment process and its findings. The decision should then be based on a balanced consideration of these impacts, ensuring alignment with ethical principles and the university's regulatory framework. Question 6. Which approach would be most appropriate for Alzaiem Alazhari University to adopt when considering the implementation of a new admissions policy designed to attract a more diverse student body, ensuring compliance with Sudanese higher education regulations and ethical admissions practices? Option A. Relying on the subjective experiences and opinions of the admissions committee members to gauge the fairness and effectiveness of the proposed policy. Option B. Directly adopting a successful admissions policy from a well-regarded international university without local adaptation or review. Option C. Prioritizing the immediate achievement of enrollment targets by fast-tracking the implementation of the new policy, assuming it will naturally lead to greater diversity. Option D. Conducting a thorough impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of the new policy on various student demographics and its alignment with university objectives and regulatory requirements. The correct answer is D. Conducting a thorough impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of the new policy on various student demographics and its alignment with university objectives and regulatory requirements. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for Alzaiem Alazhari University admissions officers who must evaluate the fairness and potential impact of a new admissions policy. The challenge lies in balancing the university's strategic goals with its commitment to equitable access and non-discrimination, all within the framework of Sudanese higher education regulations and the university's own internal guidelines. A hasty or biased implementation could lead to legal challenges, reputational damage, and a failure to serve the broader community. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment. This method systematically analyzes the potential consequences of the new admissions policy on various stakeholder groups, including prospective students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, regions, and academic profiles. It requires gathering data, consulting with relevant parties, and evaluating the policy against established principles of fairness and the university's mission. This approach aligns with the ethical imperative to ensure that admissions processes are just and do not create undue barriers for qualified candidates. Furthermore, it is consistent with the spirit of regulatory frameworks that aim to promote equal opportunity in education. An approach that prioritizes immediate enrollment targets without considering broader implications would be ethically flawed. Such a focus could inadvertently disadvantage certain groups, violating principles of fairness, and potentially contravening any existing Sudanese regulations that mandate equitable access to higher education. An approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or personal opinions of admissions staff, without systematic data collection or analysis, would lack the rigor required for a fair and defensible policy. This could lead to biased decision-making and an inability to identify and address unintended negative consequences, thus failing to meet professional standards of due diligence. An approach that seeks to replicate admissions policies from other universities without considering the unique context and regulatory environment of Alzaiem University would be inappropriate. This ignores the specific legal and cultural landscape of Sudan and could result in a policy that is not only ineffective, but also non-compliant with local laws and university statutes. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a structured, evidence-based methodology. This includes clearly defining the objectives of the policy, identifying potential impacts, gathering relevant data, consulting with stakeholders, evaluating alternatives, and documenting the decision-making process. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, justifiable, and aligned with ethical and regulatory requirements. Question 7. Implementation of a revised admissions policy at Alazhari University aimed at increasing enrollment in specific science programs requires careful consideration of its potential effects. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with the university's regulatory framework and ethical standards? Option A. Proceeding with the policy's immediate implementation based on the assumption that its intended benefits for science programs will outweigh any unforeseen consequences. Option B. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes the policy's effects on academic diversity, fairness, and adherence to all relevant university statutes and national educational guidelines before implementation. Option C. Implementing the policy on a trial basis for one academic year without a formal assessment, with a commitment to review its effectiveness afterward. Option D. Focusing solely on the projected increase in science program enrollment and disregarding any potential negative impacts on other academic disciplines or applicant groups. Correct answer is B. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes the policy's effects on academic diversity, fairness, and adherence to all relevant university statutes and national educational guidelines before implementation. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for Alazhari University's admissions committee regarding the implementation of a new admissions policy. The core professional challenge lies in balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical imperative of fairness and transparency in the admissions process, while adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing university admissions in the relevant jurisdiction. The committee must ensure that any new policy is not only effective in achieving its intended outcomes, but also legally sound and ethically defensible, avoiding any potential for discrimination or undue advantage. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that considers multiple facets of the proposed policy. This includes evaluating its potential effects on student diversity, academic standards, and the overall student experience. Crucially, it necessitates a review against the Alzaiem University's own statutes and any applicable national or regional educational regulations. This comprehensive assessment ensures that the policy is implemented in a manner that is both compliant with the law and aligned with the university's mission and values, promoting equitable access and maintaining academic integrity. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the policy implementation without a formal impact assessment. This failure to scrutinize the potential consequences could lead to unintended negative outcomes, such as inadvertently disadvantaging certain applicant groups or creating administrative burdens that undermine the efficiency of the admissions process. Ethically, it represents a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the principles of fairness and transparency expected in academic admissions. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on the perceived benefits of the policy without considering its potential drawbacks or its alignment with existing regulations. This narrow focus risks creating a policy that, while perhaps achieving a specific short-term goal, violates broader legal or ethical obligations. potentially leading to reputational damage and legal challenges for the university. Professionals tasked with such decisions should adopt a structured decision-making process. This involves clearly defining the problem or proposed change, identifying all relevant stakeholders, gathering comprehensive information, including regulatory requirements and potential impacts, evaluating alternative solutions against established criteria, including legal compliance, ethical considerations, and strategic alignment. And finally, making a well-reasoned decision with clear justification. Regular review and adaptation of policies based on their actual impact are also essential components of professional practice. Question 8. The control framework reveals that a significant donor to Alzaiem University has a child applying for admission. The donor has expressed a strong desire for their child to be accepted and has hinted at the possibility of increased future donations if their child's application is successful. The admissions committee is aware of this situation. Which of the following approaches best upholds the university's commitment to fair and merit-based admissions while adhering to ethical and regulatory standards? Option A. The admissions committee should subtly influence the admissions officers to lean towards accepting the donor's child without making any formal disclosure of the donor's influence. Option B. The admissions committee should proceed with the admissions decision as usual, without any special consideration or disclosure, assuming the applicant will be evaluated solely on merit. Option C. The admissions committee should immediately disclose the potential conflict of interest to the university's ethics board and seek guidance on recusal or the establishment of an independent review process for this specific application. Option D. The admissions committee should discreetly ensure the donor's child receives favorable consideration to maintain the relationship and secure future funding. The correct answer is D. The admissions committee should discreetly ensure the donor's child receives favorable consideration to maintain the relationship and secure future funding. Explanation. The control framework reveals a potential conflict of interest that requires careful navigation to uphold ethical standards and regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the university's need for external funding with the integrity of the academic admissions process. A decision-maker must consider the potential for undue influence and ensure that admissions are based solely on merit and adherence to established criteria, as mandated by the Alzaiem university's internal regulations and any overarching national educational policies. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent disclosure of the potential conflict to the relevant university admissions committee or ethics board. This allows for an objective review and the implementation of appropriate safeguards, such as recusal from the decision-making process concerning the donor's child or the establishment of a separate, independent review panel. This aligns with the ethical principle of avoiding conflicts of interest and the regulatory expectation of fair and impartial admissions processes. Transparency and adherence to established procedures are paramount in maintaining public trust and the reputation of the university. An approach that involves directly intervening in the admissions process to favor the donor's child, even with the intention of securing future funding, represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This action undermines the merit-based system and could be construed as bribery or undue influence, violating principles of fairness and equal opportunity. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the potential conflict and proceed with the admissions decision without any disclosure or mitigation. This demonstrates a lack of professional judgment and a disregard for ethical obligations, potentially leading to accusations of favorability and a breach of trust. Finally, an approach that involves subtly influencing admissions officers without explicit disclosure or formal mitigation measures is also professionally unacceptable. While it may appear less overt, it still constitutes an attempt to leverage a personal relationship for preferential treatment, compromising the integrity of the admissions process and violating the spirit of ethical conduct. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the potential conflict of interest. 2. Consulting relevant university policies and national educational guidelines. 3. Disclosing the conflict to the appropriate authority, e.g., Admissions Committee, Ethics Board. 4. Seeking guidance on recusal or the implementation of mitigation strategies. 5. Documenting all decisions and actions taken. 6. Prioritizing fairness, integrity, and compliance above personal or institutional gain. Question 9. During the evaluation of a proposed new digital platform for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam application process, which approach to assessing the impact on applicant data privacy is most aligned with the university's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines. Option A. Prioritizing the speed and ease of data entry for applicants, assuming that standard data security protocols are sufficient to protect all information collected. Option B. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically identifies potential risks to applicant data privacy, evaluates their likelihood and severity, and proposes specific mitigation measures in line with university data protection policies. Option C. Focusing the assessment primarily on the technical capabilities of the platform to handle large volumes of data, with minimal consideration for the types of personal information being processed. Option D. Relying on informal consultations with IT staff to gauge the general security of the platform, without a structured review of data handling procedures or potential privacy vulnerabilities. The correct answer is B. Conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically identifies potential risks to applicant data privacy, evaluates their likelihood and severity, and proposes specific mitigation measures in line with university data protection policies. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's need for accurate student data with the ethical obligation to protect sensitive personal information. The entrance exam regulations for Alzaiem Alazhari University likely emphasize data privacy and the responsible handling of applicant information. A careful judgment is required to ensure that any impact assessment process adheres strictly to these regulations, avoiding overreach or unnecessary collection of data. The correct approach involves a thorough and systematic assessment of how the proposed changes to the admissions process might affect student data privacy. This approach is right because it proactively identifies potential risks and ensures that mitigation strategies are in place before implementation. Specifically, it aligns with the likely regulatory framework of Alzaiem Alazhari University, which would mandate data protection principles, requiring that any processing of personal data be lawful, fair, and transparent, and that appropriate technical and organizational measures are taken to ensure data security. This proactive assessment demonstrates a commitment to upholding these principles and avoiding breaches of privacy. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the efficiency of data collection without considering privacy implications fails to meet regulatory requirements. Such an approach would likely violate data protection principles by potentially leading to the collection of excessive or irrelevant personal data, or by not adequately safeguarding the data collected. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the immediate needs of the admissions department over the long-term implications for student privacy is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of foresight and a disregard for the ethical and legal obligations to protect applicant data, potentially leading to reputational damage and legal penalties for the university. A third incorrect approach that relies on informal discussions and assumptions about data handling, rather than a structured assessment, would be a significant failure. This lack of formal process means that potential privacy risks are not systematically identified or addressed, leaving the university vulnerable to non-compliance and data breaches. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific regulatory and ethical obligations relevant to the situation. This involves consulting the Alzaiem Alazhari University's entrance exam regulations and any associated data protection policies. The next step is to identify the proposed action or change and then systematically evaluate its potential impact on all stakeholders, particularly concerning data privacy. This evaluation should be documented and involve seeking expert advice if necessary. Finally, decisions should be made based on a clear alignment with regulatory requirements and ethical principles, prioritizing the protection of sensitive information. Question 10. Market research demonstrates a significant demand for specialized programs in emerging technological fields, prompting a proposal to revise the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam to include aptitude tests specifically tailored to these areas, potentially at the expense of broader foundational knowledge assessments. Which approach best upholds the integrity and fairness of the university's admission process under the existing regulatory framework? Option A. Dismiss the market research findings as irrelevant to the core academic purpose of the entrance examination, maintaining the current assessment structure without any modifications. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate how the proposed aptitude tests would affect the validity and reliability of the overall entrance examination, ensuring alignment with the university's academic standards and the principles of fair selection, while also exploring ways to integrate new assessments without compromising foundational knowledge evaluation. Option C. Immediately revise the entrance examination to heavily feature the proposed specialized aptitude tests to capitalize on market demand and attract a larger applicant pool for these sought-after programs. Option D. Introduce the specialized aptitude tests as an optional component of the entrance examination, allowing applicants to choose whether to take them, with the results contributing minimally to the overall score. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate how the proposed aptitude tests would affect the validity and reliability of the overall entrance examination, ensuring alignment with the university's academic standards and the principles of fair selection, while also exploring ways to integrate new assessments without compromising foundational knowledge evaluation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance the university's strategic growth objectives with the ethical and regulatory obligations concerning the integrity of the entrance examination process. The university's desire to increase enrollment must not compromise the fairness, validity, and security of the admission criteria, which are governed by the Alzaiem Alazhari University Entrance Exam Framework. A hasty or improperly assessed impact of market research findings could lead to decisions that undermine the academic standards and reputation of the university. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that meticulously evaluates how proposed changes, informed by market research, would affect the examination's core principles. This includes scrutinizing potential biases introduced by new assessment methods, ensuring that any adjustments align with the established academic standards and the spirit of the Alzaiem Alazhari University Entrance Exam regulations. The ethical imperative is to maintain a merit-based selection process that is fair to all applicants. Regulatory justification stems from the implicit requirement within any university entrance exam framework to uphold academic integrity and prevent any form of unfair advantage or disadvantage. An approach that prioritizes immediate enrollment increases without a thorough impact assessment risks violating the principles of fairness and academic rigor. This could manifest as a regulatory failure if the changes inadvertently create barriers for certain demographic groups, or if the assessment methods become less reliable in predicting academic success, thereby contravening the underlying intent of the examination framework. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss market research findings entirely without due consideration. While the exam framework prioritizes academic merit, ignoring external market dynamics could lead to a decline in applicant pool quality or relevance over time, potentially impacting the university's long-term viability. This might not be a direct regulatory violation, but represents a failure in strategic foresight and responsiveness, which can indirectly affect the university's standing and its ability to fulfill its educational mission. A third incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on the perceived popularity of certain fields or programs, as indicated by market research, without assessing their alignment with the university's academic strengths and faculty capacity. This could lead to an overemphasis on certain disciplines at the expense of others, potentially diluting the overall academic quality and failing to meet the comprehensive educational objectives mandated by the university's charter and the entrance exam's purpose of selecting suitable candidates across various disciplines. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured evaluation. First, clearly define the objectives of the market research and the proposed changes. Second, identify all relevant stakeholders and their interests. Third, conduct a thorough impact assessment, considering academic, ethical, and regulatory implications. Fourth, consult with relevant university committees and legal counsel to ensure compliance. Finally, implement changes incrementally and monitor their effectiveness, being prepared to adjust based on ongoing evaluation and feedback, always prioritizing the integrity of the academic selection process. Question 11. Performance analysis shows that while student enrollment numbers are a key metric for university success, The long-term satisfaction and success of graduates are equally critical indicators of program quality and institutional reputation. Considering this, which of the following approaches to presenting program outcomes and career prospects to prospective students best aligns with ethical recruitment practices and the principles of responsible higher education? Option A. Emphasizing the unique advantages of the university's programs without providing specific data on graduate employment or salary expectations, focusing instead on aspirational language. Option B. Focusing on the theoretical knowledge gained in the programs and the academic rigor, while minimizing discussion of post-graduation employment or career progression to avoid setting potentially unmet expectations. Option C. Highlighting only the most exceptional success stories of recent graduates, showcasing high-profile alumni and their achievements as representative of typical outcomes. Option D. Presenting a comprehensive overview of graduate employment statistics, typical career paths, and salary ranges, while also acknowledging the competitive nature of certain fields and the effort required for success. The correct answer is D. Presenting a comprehensive overview of graduate employment statistics, typical career paths, and salary ranges, while also acknowledging the competitive nature of certain fields and the effort required for success. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate need for student enrollment with the ethical and regulatory obligation to provide accurate and transparent information to prospective students. Misrepresenting program outcomes or future career prospects, even with good intentions to attract applicants, can lead to significant harm to students who make educational decisions based on false premises. This can result in dissatisfaction, financial loss, and damage to the university's reputation. Careful judgment is required to ensure that recruitment efforts are both effective and compliant with ethical standards and any applicable university policies or general principles of fair advertising. The correct approach involves a realistic and evidence-based assessment of program outcomes and career prospects. This means acknowledging both the strengths and limitations of the programs and providing prospective students with data that reflects actual graduate employment rates, typical starting salaries, and common career paths. This approach aligns with the ethical principle of honesty and transparency in dealings with stakeholders. It also implicitly adheres to principles of fair practice, ensuring that students are not misled into making decisions that are not in their best interest. While specific regulations for university entrance exams in Alzaiem Alazhari University are not detailed here, the underlying ethical imperative to avoid deceptive practices is universal in educational recruitment. An approach that exaggerates program success rates or career opportunities is ethically flawed because it constitutes a misrepresentation. This can lead students to enroll in programs under false pretenses, potentially incurring significant financial and personal costs without a realistic chance of achieving their desired outcomes. Such exaggeration violates the principle of honesty and can be considered deceptive advertising, which is generally prohibited in professional contexts, including education. An approach that focuses solely on the most exceptional success stories, ignoring the broader statistical reality, is also problematic. While highlighting achievements is important, presenting outliers as the norm is misleading. This fails to provide a balanced perspective and can create unrealistic expectations among prospective students. Ethically, this is a form of selective truth-telling that amounts to deception. An approach that downplays the challenges or competitive nature of the job market for graduates is similarly flawed. While the university should promote its programs, it also has a responsibility to prepare students for the realities they will face. Omitting or minimizing these realities is a failure of due diligence and can lead to student disappointment and a sense of betrayal. This breaches the ethical duty to provide accurate and complete information. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to accuracy and transparency. Professionals should ask, am I providing a truthful and balanced picture of what a student can expect from this program and its outcomes? This involves grounding all claims in verifiable data, acknowledging potential challenges, and ensuring that marketing materials reflect the reality of the student experience and graduate prospects. If there is any doubt about the accuracy or potential for misinterpretation of information, it is always better to err on the side of caution and provide more context or less embellished claims. Question 12. Market research demonstrates a growing demand for graduates with interdisciplinary skills in sustainable urban development. Alzaiem Alazhari University is considering launching a new Bachelor of Science program in Eco-City Design. To attract a high volume of applicants, the university's marketing department proposes emphasizing the program's cutting-edge curriculum and the potential for graduates to secure leadership roles in future green cities, without providing specific data on current employment rates or salary expectations for such roles. Which approach best aligns with the university's ethical and professional responsibilities? Option A. Develop the marketing strategy around the proposed program's innovative curriculum and the aspirational vision of future leadership roles, while acknowledging that specific employment data will be gathered and shared as the program progresses. Option B. Conduct comprehensive market research to identify specific employer needs, current job market trends for related roles, and realistic graduate employment outcomes, and then develop marketing materials that accurately reflect this data, including potential career paths and salary ranges. Option C. Focus marketing efforts on the unique theoretical frameworks taught in the program, assuming that students interested in sustainability will naturally find employment opportunities regardless of specific market demand. Option D. Highlight the program's novelty and the university's commitment to innovation, suggesting that graduates will be well-positioned for emerging roles without detailing the specific nature or demand for these roles. The correct answer is A. Develop the marketing strategy around the proposed program's innovative curriculum and the aspirational vision of future leadership roles, while acknowledging that specific employment data will be gathered and shared as the program progresses. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a university's desire to attract students and the ethical obligation to provide accurate and unbiased information about its programs. Misrepresenting program outcomes or career prospects can lead to significant student dissatisfaction, reputational damage for the university, and potential regulatory scrutiny. Careful judgment is required to balance promotional efforts with transparency and integrity. The correct approach involves conducting thorough and objective market research to understand the actual employment landscape for graduates of the proposed program. This research should inform realistic expectations about career paths, salary ranges, and the skills employers seek. The university should then use this data to develop program content and marketing materials that accurately reflect these realities, avoiding hyperbole or unsubstantiated claims. This aligns with principles of academic integrity and consumer protection, ensuring prospective students make informed decisions based on factual information. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on anecdotal evidence or aspirational statements without empirical backing. This could involve highlighting only the most successful alumni or exaggerating the demand for graduates. Such a strategy fails to provide a balanced view and can mislead students about the true prospects of the program. Ethically, it breaches the duty of care owed to prospective students. Another incorrect approach is to focus exclusively on the unique or innovative aspects of the program without considering their market relevance or employability. While innovation is valuable, it must be grounded in the needs of the job market. Presenting novel curriculum without demonstrating its practical application or employer acceptance is a disservice to students seeking career advancement. This approach prioritizes academic novelty over student outcomes, potentially leading to graduates with skills that are not in demand. A further incorrect approach is to adopt a wait-and-see attitude, launching the program with vague promises and intending to adjust based on initial student feedback. This reactive strategy is professionally irresponsible. Universities have a duty to conduct due diligence before launching new programs, including assessing market viability and potential graduate outcomes. Delaying this assessment until after enrollment shifts the burden of risk and uncertainty onto the students. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Define the objective: to launch a new program that is both academically sound and leads to viable career opportunities for graduates. 2. Gather evidence. Conduct comprehensive market research, including surveys of employers, analysis of industry trends, and consultation with career services professionals. 3. Assess feasibility. Evaluate the program's alignment with market demands and the university's capacity to deliver high-quality education that meets those demands. 4. Develop transparent communication. Create marketing materials and admissions information that accurately reflect program outcomes, potential career paths, and necessary qualifications. 5. Seek internal and external validation. Obtain feedback from faculty, industry experts, and potentially accreditation bodies on the program's relevance and projected outcomes. 6. Monitor and adapt. Continuously track graduate employment data and employer feedback to refine the program and its marketing over time, ensuring ongoing relevance and integrity. Question 13. Market research demonstrates that a prominent local business leader has contacted a member of the Alzaiem Alazhari University admissions team, inquiring about the specific topics and difficulty level of the upcoming entrance examination, stating it is to help prepare potential candidates from disadvantaged backgrounds. The admissions team member is unsure how to respond, as the exam content is confidential until administered. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the admissions team member, strictly adhering to the regulatory framework for university entrance examinations in Sudan? Option A. Escalate the inquiry to the university's legal counsel and the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, requesting guidance on how to handle external inquiries that may compromise exam integrity. Option B. Provide a general overview of the subject areas covered in the exam, without revealing specific questions or the exact weighting of topics, to assist the business leader in their preparation efforts. Option C. Politely decline to provide any specific details about the exam content or difficulty, citing confidentiality, and inform the business leader that all applicants are expected to prepare based on the publicly available syllabus and general admission guidelines. Option D. Directly inform the business leader that the exam is designed to assess fundamental knowledge and problem-solving skills, and suggest they focus on core academic subjects typically covered in secondary education. Correct answer is C. Politely decline to provide any specific details about the exam content or difficulty, citing confidentiality, and inform the business leader that all applicants are expected to prepare based on the publicly available syllabus and general admission guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a university's academic mission and the potential for external influence on its admissions process. Maintaining the integrity of the entrance exam is paramount to ensuring fairness, meritocracy, and the reputation of Alzaiem Alazhari University. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams, as stipulated by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research in Sudan, assuming this is the relevant jurisdiction for Alzaiem Alazhari University, emphasizes transparency, objectivity, and equal opportunity for all applicants. The correct approach involves prioritizing the established examination protocols and seeking guidance from the designated university authorities responsible for academic integrity and admissions. This upholds the principle of fairness by ensuring all candidates are assessed on the same objective criteria as mandated by the university's regulations. It also adheres to the ethical obligation of maintaining the impartiality of the examination process, preventing any undue advantage or disadvantage to applicants. An incorrect approach that involves directly engaging with the external entity to clarify the exam's content or structure would be professionally unacceptable. This action could be construed as an attempt to leak or compromise exam security, violating the strict confidentiality requirements of the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. Furthermore, it bypasses the established channels for addressing concerns, undermining the authority of the university's examination board and potentially creating a precedent for future undue influence. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the external entity's request and proceeding without any acknowledgement or internal reporting, is also professionally unsound. While it avoids direct compromise, it fails to address a potential threat to exam integrity and neglects the duty to report irregularities or potential breaches of protocol to the appropriate university officials. This inaction could leave the university vulnerable to future attempts at manipulation. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's examination regulations and ethical guidelines. When faced with an external inquiry that appears to probe or influence the exam, the professional's first step should be to consult the internal policies and procedures for handling such matters. If the situation remains unclear or poses a potential risk, escalating the issue to the relevant university committee or authority, e.g., the admissions committee, The Dean of Academic Affairs is crucial. This ensures that any decisions are made within the established regulatory framework and with the full awareness of the university administration, safeguarding the integrity of the entrance examination. Question 14. Market research demonstrates that prospective students often seek to understand the boundaries of permissible resources during standardized university entrance examinations. Considering the specific regulatory framework for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam, which of the following actions best reflects a candidate's understanding of these requirements when preparing for and undertaking the examination? Option A. Consulting online forums and study groups to gather common exam preparation tips, assuming that any resource not explicitly forbidden is permitted. Option B. Using a smartphone to discreetly access online dictionaries or calculators during the exam, reasoning that such tools can aid in problem solving and are not explicitly banned in the general exam instructions. Option C. Bringing a personal annotated textbook that covers the subjects of the exam, believing that self-study materials are generally acceptable in academic settings. Option D. Relying solely on the official syllabus provided by Alzaiem Alazhari University and strictly adhering to all explicit instructions given by the invigilators during the examination. The correct answer is D. Relying solely on the official syllabus provided by Alzaiem Alazhari University and strictly adhering to all explicit instructions given by the invigilators during the examination. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an understanding of the Alzaiem Alazhari University's specific entrance examination regulations regarding the use of external resources during the exam. The core of the challenge lies in distinguishing between permissible and impermissible assistance, which directly impacts the integrity of the examination process and the fairness of the assessment. Strict adherence to the university's guidelines is paramount to ensure a valid and reliable evaluation of candidates' knowledge and abilities. The correct approach involves a candidate strictly adhering to the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam regulations by refraining from using any external materials or seeking assistance from unauthorized sources. This approach upholds the principles of academic integrity and fair assessment, as stipulated by the university's examination framework. The regulatory justification is rooted in the explicit rules of the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam, which are designed to ensure that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit and knowledge, without unfair advantage. An incorrect approach would be to assume that general knowledge about exam conduct applies, without consulting the specific regulations of the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam. This could lead to the use of prohibited materials or methods, resulting in a violation of the exam's rules. The regulatory failure here is a direct contravention of the specific guidelines set forth by Alzaiem Alazhari University for its entrance examination, potentially leading to disqualification. Another incorrect approach would be to interpret the silence of the regulations on a specific item as permission to use it. This is a flawed reasoning process, as university entrance exams typically operate under a principle of explicit prohibition for unauthorized items and actions. The ethical failure lies in exploiting ambiguity rather than seeking clarity or adhering to the spirit of the regulations, which is to ensure a standardized and equitable testing environment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough review of the official examination guidelines provided by Alzaiem Alazhari University. If any aspect remains unclear, candidates should proactively seek clarification from the examination authorities well in advance of the exam date. During the exam, candidates must exercise vigilance and self-discipline, consistently referring back to the established rules to guide their actions and ensure compliance. Question 15. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential applicant for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance examination is the child of a significant potential donor whose substantial financial contribution could greatly benefit the university. The applicant's academic record, while meeting the minimum threshold, is not exceptionally strong compared to other candidates. The university is under pressure to secure funding. How should the admissions committee proceed? Option A. Suggest the applicant undertake additional non-standard assessments or seek external endorsements to bolster their application, bypassing the regular examination process. Option B. Recommend immediate admission for the applicant to secure the potential donation, prioritizing the financial benefit to the university. Option C. Inform the applicant's family that their donation is a key factor in the admission decision, implying a quid pro quo. Option D. Evaluate the applicant strictly based on the established academic criteria and the results of the entrance examination, ensuring all admission policies are applied uniformly. The correct answer is D. Evaluate the applicant strictly based on the established academic criteria and the results of the entrance examination, ensuring all admission policies are applied uniformly. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure that all admissions processes are fair, transparent, and adhere to the established academic standards. The pressure to secure financial contributions must not compromise the integrity of the entrance examination, which is the gateway to academic opportunities. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with the principles of academic integrity and equal opportunity. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of the applicant's qualifications against the university's established academic criteria, irrespective of any potential donation. This aligns with the Alzaiem University's commitment to merit-based admissions and upholding academic standards, as implicitly required by any reputable educational institution's charter and entrance examination regulations. The ethical imperative is to treat all applicants equally and to base admission decisions solely on their academic merit and suitability for the program, ensuring fairness and preventing any perception of undue influence or favoritism. An incorrect approach that prioritizes the potential donation over academic merit would fail to uphold the principles of fairness and equal opportunity. This would violate the implicit trust placed in the university to provide a level playing field for all aspiring students. Such an approach could lead to the admission of underqualified candidates, thereby lowering academic standards and potentially damaging the university's reputation. It also creates an ethical dilemma by suggesting that financial contributions can override academic suitability, which is contrary to the core mission of an educational institution. Another incorrect approach that involves seeking external validation for the applicant's qualifications without a clear, objective, and documented process risks introducing bias and circumventing the established admission procedures. While seeking clarification on an applicant's background might be acceptable in certain contexts, doing so in a manner that suggests preferential treatment or bypasses the standard assessment criteria is ethically unsound and undermines the integrity of the entrance examination. This approach fails to demonstrate a commitment to a transparent and equitable admission process. The professional reasoning process for such situation should involve a clear adherence to established university policies and admission criteria. And faced with a situation where external factors might influence an admission decision, a professional must first consult the relevant university regulations and ethical guidelines. The decision-making framework should prioritize objectivity, fairness, and transparency. If there is any ambiguity or potential conflict of interest, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the relevant admissions committee is crucial. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all decisions are defensible, ethical, and in line with the university's commitment to academic excellence and integrity. Question 16. The evaluation methodology shows that a candidate, while preparing for the Alzaiem University entrance exam, discovered a website containing what appears to be past exam questions and detailed solutions. Considering the exam's emphasis on assessing a candidate's independent knowledge and adherence to academic integrity, which of the following actions best reflects the expected professional and ethical conduct for a candidate? Option A. Reporting the existence of the website to the university administration for review and potential action, while refraining from using its content for personal study. Option B. Accessing and studying the provided solutions to understand the expected reasoning and problem-solving techniques for similar questions. Option C. Sharing the website link with fellow candidates to collectively benefit from the available resources. Option D. Utilizing the website as a supplementary study guide, believing that understanding the material, regardless of the source, is the primary goal. The correct answer is B. Accessing and studying the provided solutions to understand the expected reasoning and problem-solving techniques for similar questions. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a candidate's understanding of the Alzaiem University entrance exam's regulatory framework, specifically concerning academic integrity and the proper use of university resources. This scenario is professionally challenging because it tests the candidate's ability to discern between acceptable and unacceptable academic practices within the context of the university's specific guidelines. A careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and academic honesty that are foundational to any educational institution. The correct approach involves recognizing that accessing and utilizing unauthorized materials, even if readily available online, constitutes a violation of academic integrity policies. This approach aligns with the core principles of the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam, which emphasizes independent thought and genuine demonstration of knowledge. Relying on external, unapproved resources undermines the purpose of the exam, which is to assess a candidate's own learning and capabilities. This is ethically sound and directly compliant with any university's commitment to fair assessment and preventing academic misconduct. An incorrect approach would be to assume that because information is publicly accessible online, it is permissible to use it during the exam. This fails to acknowledge that exam environments have specific rules regarding the use of external aids, regardless of their general availability. Such an approach demonstrates a misunderstanding of the exam's purpose and a disregard for its stipulated regulations, potentially leading to accusations of cheating. Another incorrect approach is to believe that the exam's focus is solely on the final answer, irrespective of the method used to arrive at it. This overlooks the critical importance of the process and the integrity of the assessment. Universities, including Alzaiem Alazhari, are concerned not only with the outcome, but also with ensuring that the outcome is achieved through legitimate means. This perspective can lead to a justification of unethical behavior by prioritizing results over ethical conduct. A further incorrect approach might be to rationalize the use of unauthorized materials by claiming it is a necessary tool for success in a competitive environment. While competition is inherent in university admissions, it does not excuse or legitimize the violation of academic rules. This approach prioritizes perceived necessity over established ethical and regulatory boundaries, demonstrating a flawed understanding of professional conduct within an academic setting. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a clear understanding of the exam's rules and regulations. Candidates must actively seek clarification on any ambiguities regarding permissible resources. When faced with a situation where the use of a resource is questionable, the default professional and ethical stance should be to err on the side of caution and refrain from its use, or to seek explicit permission beforehand. This proactive approach safeguards against unintentional breaches of academic integrity and demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct. Question 17. Investigation of a prospective student's preparation for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam reveals they are concerned about the difficulty of the mathematics section and have heard rumors about specific topics being heavily emphasized in past exams. They are considering contacting a friend who is currently a student at the university to inquire about any unofficial study guides or insights into the exam's focus. Which of the following represents the most ethically sound and procedurally compliant approach for this student? Option A. The student should consult the official Alzaiem Alazhari University admissions website for any provided study guides, recommended reading lists, or contact the admissions office directly to inquire about the scope of the mathematics section and any available preparatory resources. Option B. The student should focus their study efforts on the most commonly discussed topics in online forums, assuming these are the most likely to appear on the exam. Option C. The student should attempt to find and purchase past examination papers from external online sources, believing these will offer the most accurate representation of the exam's content and difficulty. Option D. The student should ask their current student friend for any unofficial study materials or advice they might have, as this could provide a more targeted approach to their preparation. The correct answer is A. The student should consult the official Alzaiem Alazhari University admissions website for any provided study guides, recommended reading lists, or contact the admissions office directly to inquire about the scope of the mathematics section and any available preparatory resources. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the ethical imperative to uphold academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a crucial entrance exam, especially when facing perceived limitations in preparation, can lead to the temptation of seeking unfair advantages. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation ethically, and in accordance with the Alzaiem Alazhari University's established regulatory framework for entrance examinations. The correct approach involves a student proactively seeking clarification and additional resources from authorized university channels. This demonstrates a commitment to learning and a respect for the examination process. Specifically, it aligns with the university's likely guidelines that encourage students to utilize official study materials, attend preparatory workshops if offered, and consult with academic advisors or admission staff for guidance on exam content and preparation strategies. This approach upholds the principle of fairness and equal opportunity for all candidates, ensuring that success is based on merit and genuine understanding, not on illicit shortcuts. An incorrect approach that involves seeking unauthorized assistance from current students or external tutors who claim to have access to past exam papers or guaranteed questions represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This directly violates the principles of academic honesty and fair competition. Such actions undermine the integrity of the examination process, devalue the achievements of honest candidates, and could lead to severe penalties for the student, including disqualification from the entrance exam and potential blacklisting from future admissions. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of respect for the university's authority and its commitment to a transparent and equitable selection process. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to access or share confidential exam information, is a grave breach of academic and potentially legal regulations. This not only compromises the integrity of the exam, but also constitutes a form of academic misconduct that carries severe consequences. It demonstrates a disregard for the trust placed in candidates and the established rules governing the examination. The professional decision-making process for students in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policies. When faced with pressure or uncertainty about exam preparation, the first step should always be to consult official university resources. This includes reviewing the exam syllabus, seeking guidance from the admissions office, and utilizing any preparatory materials provided by the university. If a student feels they are struggling, they should explore legitimate avenues for academic support offered by the institution, rather than resorting to unethical or unauthorized methods. This proactive and ethical engagement ensures that the student is acting with integrity and respecting the established rules of the Alzaiem Alazhari University. Question 18. System analysis indicates that during a critical preparatory session for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam, a fellow candidate approaches you with an offer to share pre-tested exam questions that they claim to have obtained through unofficial channels. They assure you that this information will significantly improve your chances of admission. How should you respond to this situation to uphold the integrity of the exam and your own academic standing? Option A. Express gratitude for the offer but suggest that you both focus on your own preparation, implying that you might consider their offer later if your own efforts are insufficient. Option B. Ignore the candidate and pretend you did not hear their offer, hoping the situation resolves itself without your involvement. Option C. Politely but firmly decline the offer, stating that you prefer to prepare through legitimate study methods and that you do not wish to compromise the fairness of the entrance exam. Option D. Accept the shared questions, believing that it is a common practice and that it will give you a competitive advantage. The correct answer is C. Politely but firmly decline the offer, stating that you prefer to prepare through legitimate study methods and that you do not wish to compromise the fairness of the entrance exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a crucial entrance exam, coupled with the availability of potentially unauthorized assistance, creates an ethical dilemma. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and honesty that underpin the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam. The correct approach involves recognizing the ethical implications of the situation and choosing to act with integrity. This means declining any offer of unauthorized assistance, even if it seems like a shortcut to success. This aligns with the core principles of academic honesty and the specific guidelines of the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam, which implicitly or explicitly prohibit any form of cheating or academic misconduct. Upholding these standards ensures a fair evaluation for all candidates and maintains the credibility of the university's admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to accept the offer of unauthorized assistance. This action directly violates the principles of academic integrity and the rules governing the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam. It constitutes academic dishonesty, which can lead to severe consequences, including disqualification from the exam and potential disciplinary action by the university. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the offer without any internal reflection or decision. This passive stance fails to address the ethical challenge and leaves the student vulnerable to future temptations or misunderstandings of acceptable conduct. A third incorrect approach would be to seek advice from peers who might not fully understand or adhere to the exam's ethical standards, potentially leading to misguided decisions. Professionals in such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct. This involves 1. Identifying the ethical issue, recognizing the temptation and the potential for academic dishonesty. 2. Consulting relevant guidelines, referring to the specific rules and regulations of the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam regarding academic integrity. 3. Evaluating options, considering the consequences of accepting or rejecting the offer, both for oneself and for the integrity of the exam. 4. Making a decision, choosing the path that upholds ethical principles and aligns with the university's standards. 5. Acting on the decision, confidently refusing any unethical offer and proceeding with the exam honestly. Question 19. System analysis indicates that a prospective student preparing for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam has inadvertently received an email containing what appears to be a compilation of past exam questions and their purported answers, sent by an unknown sender. The student is aware that such materials are not officially sanctioned by the university, and their use would constitute academic misconduct according to Alzaiem Alazhari University's examination regulations. The student is concerned about the fairness of the exam and their own preparation. What is the most appropriate course of action for this student to take? Option A. Discard the email and pretend the incident never happened, focusing solely on their own independent preparation for the exam. Option B. Discreetly review the provided materials to gain an advantage in the exam, assuming that the university will not be able to detect their use. Option C. Immediately cease any further engagement with the received materials and report the incident, including the email and its contents, to the designated examination authority or admissions office at Alzaiem Alazhari University. Option D. Share the received materials with fellow prospective students to ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to access potentially useful information. The correct answer is C. Immediately cease any further engagement with the received materials and report the incident, including the email and its contents, to the designated examination authority or admissions office at Alzaiem Alazhari University. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam, coupled with the availability of potentially unauthorized assistance, creates an ethical dilemma. Navigating this requires a strong understanding of Alzaiem Alazhari University's specific examination regulations and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves recognizing the unauthorized nature of the provided materials and reporting them through the designated university channels. This upholds the principles of fairness, equal opportunity, and academic honesty, which are foundational to the integrity of the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance examination process. By adhering to the university's established procedures for reporting academic misconduct, the student acts ethically and responsibly, ensuring that the examination remains a true measure of individual merit and knowledge. This aligns with the university's regulatory framework designed to prevent cheating and maintain a credible assessment environment. An incorrect approach would be to utilize the provided materials. This directly violates the university's regulations against academic dishonesty and compromises the integrity of the examination. It undermines the efforts of other students who have prepared legitimately and devalues the qualification awarded by Alzaiem Alazhari University. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of ethical judgment and a disregard for the established rules of academic conduct. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation and proceed with the exam without reporting the incident. This passive stance, while seemingly avoiding direct involvement in misconduct, still fails to uphold academic integrity. It allows potential unfair advantages to persist, indirectly contributing to an environment where academic dishonesty might be tolerated. The university's guidelines likely mandate reporting of such irregularities to ensure a fair playing field for all candidates. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the ethical conflict and potential consequences. 2. Consulting the specific regulations and ethical codes of Alzaiem Alazhari University regarding examination conduct and reporting procedures. 3. Prioritizing academic integrity and fairness. 4. Taking decisive action to report the observed irregularity through the appropriate university channels, thereby contributing to the maintenance of a credible and equitable examination process. Question 20. When evaluating an applicant's submission for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam, which includes a personal statement that bears a strong resemblance in theme and structure to an essay submitted for a previous academic program, what is the most appropriate course of action for the applicant to take to ensure their application is considered fairly and ethically? Option A. Assume the admissions committee will not notice the similarity or will consider it insignificant, and proceed with the application without any further comment on the personal statement. Option B. Submit a revised personal statement that is a superficial rephrasing of the previous essay, hoping to avoid detection of the underlying similarities. Option C. Proactively address the similarity in the personal statement, explaining the context of the previous submission, and clearly articulating how the current statement represents original thought and effort tailored to Alzaiem Alazhari University's specific requirements and values. Option D. Request an extension to write an entirely new personal statement, citing a sudden inability to recall or articulate their thoughts for the original submission. The correct answer is C. Proactively address the similarity in the personal statement, explaining the context of the previous submission, and clearly articulating how the current statement represents original thought and effort tailored to Alzaiem Alazhari University's specific requirements and values. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the fundamental principles of academic integrity and the university's commitment to upholding these standards. The applicant must navigate a situation where their prior academic work, while not directly plagiarized, may have been submitted in a manner that could be perceived as a lack of original thought or effort for the Alzaiem Alazhari University entrance exam. The university's regulatory framework, as implied by the entrance exam's strict adherence to its own guidelines, prioritizes originality and genuine academic engagement. The correct approach involves acknowledging the situation transparently and demonstrating a commitment to original work for the current application. This aligns with the core ethical principles of academic honesty and the university's expectation that all submitted work for admission reflects the applicant's current understanding and effort. By proactively addressing the potential concern and emphasizing their dedication to original contributions, the applicant upholds the spirit of the entrance exam's requirements, which are designed to assess genuine aptitude and commitment. This approach fosters trust and demonstrates maturity in handling potential academic discrepancies. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the previous submission or to assume it has no bearing on the current application. This fails to acknowledge the university's potential concern about originality and could be interpreted as an attempt to circumvent scrutiny. Another incorrect approach would be to downplay the significance of the previous submission or to offer excuses without a clear commitment to original work for the current exam. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of academic integrity and the importance of genuine effort in the admission process. A further incorrect approach would be to attempt to rephrase the previous work without substantial new input or original analysis, which still falls short of demonstrating genuine, independent thought required for university admission. These approaches risk misrepresenting the applicant's capabilities and commitment to academic honesty, potentially leading to disqualification. Professionals in academic admissions, when faced with such situations, should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes transparency, fairness, and adherence to institutional policies. This involves carefully reviewing the applicant's submission in light of the university's academic integrity guidelines. The process should involve assessing whether the applicant has demonstrated an understanding of originality and has taken steps to ensure their current work is a genuine reflection of their own efforts. If concerns arise, a professional approach would involve seeking clarification from the applicant in a manner that is supportive yet firm in upholding academic standards.